Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really going to dig into a pretty inspiring personal growth story. It comes from a source called From Timid Traveler to Confident Connector, My Growth Journey. And our mission today is really to unpack this incredible transformation of the author, Kayal, GCT. Okay, so let me set the scene. Picture this. Kayal, first year of college, right? First time ever traveling alone on a bus. She's sitting next to this couple. The man, she describes him as a Paka Madurakaran, a real Madura native in his Dodis. He assumes she doesn't speak Tamil, asks her in English where she's going. Then he finds out the fare in Tamil Nuthi Petu and turns back to her, translates it, 110 pan. So what does Kyle do? She just quietly hands over the money, 110 rupee note, takes the ticket, turns straight to the window. The only word she spoke, Manordai. That was it. Now hold that image for a second and contrast it with the person who wrote this piece, this same Kyle, who says she once couldn't guide someone to the nearest petrol bunk.
Now she's the one confidently helping strangers figure out complicated bus routes, even metro stations in Chennai. That massive shift, from being almost silent to actively helping others connect. That's what we're exploring today.
It really is a striking transformation. And what's fascinating here, I think, is the sheer scope of it, going from that deep introversion to being a confident connector. And the source material, it isn't just telling a story. It feels more like a roadmap, doesn't it? It offers these really practical insights, personal reflections, too, on how she overcame hesitation, how she built her network.
Okay, so let's unpack this then. Where did it start? For someone timid initially.
Yeah.
What was the push? The source really points to this crucial conversation she had with someone she calls VC. So VC asks her this really direct question. What will you do if you lose this job? And Kayal's response kind of reveals her mindset there, right? She says, I'll keep honing my skills. You'll help me find another right. But VC comes back strong. No, I won't find you a job. You need to build your network and get it on your own. That's pretty blunt, isn't it? Especially for someone just starting out.
It really is. And that raises an important point, I think. How often do we actually need that kind of external jolt, that sort of uncomfortable truth to make us see we need to grow internally, become more self-reliant? True self-sufficiency, it often starts right there with those difficult conversations. Did she say how she reacted right away?
Yeah, she did. Initially. Okay, with a little eye roll emoji in the text, actually.
Yeah.
So clearly unimpressed, maybe a bit skeptical. But later, she reflects on it. She admits she didn't fully get it at the time, but she did what he said anyway. And after going to a few events, it clicked. She realized he was, in her words, nudging me to believe in myself, to stop leaning on someone else and start standing on my own.
It's a great reminder that advice doesn't always land immediately,
Exactly. Sometimes it needs time to percolate. Right. So here's where it gets really practical and honestly quite interesting. How she applied that advice. The source stresses this. Not just being present at events is going to build confidence or networks. You have to actually talk. You have to initiate conversations with strangers, even when there's no obvious reason, no specific agenda. And she admits this was tough. She says, whoa, that's exactly where I used to suck. You can almost hear the self-deprecation there. But she talks about learning by doing. You watch others, see how they approach people. You slowly kind of unlearn your own hesitation. And crucially, because she was in college early in her career, if she fumbled a conversation, she says, it didn't feel absurd. People actually appreciated the effort. That seems key.
It does. And what's fascinating there is that iterative process, isn't it? Building a skill. Confidence isn't something you just find one day. It's built brick by brick through those repeated attempts, even the awkward ones. And the source really emphasizes the value of just showing up. Says it's a practical way to prove you're serious about growth. And even mentions almost casually that sometimes a job offer lands just because you showed up at a meetup, spoke to a few people, and had a decent LinkedIn profile, which speaks volumes. So who was she actually meeting at these events? Different from college, I assume.
Oh, completely different. Yeah, she makes that exact point. College doesn't really show you the real professional world. But at these meetups, it was a whole mix. She lists them. Founders building their own thing, people doing well in their roles, people frustrated with their jobs, people on a career break even, students, freshers figuring it out. Just a real cross-section of the working world. And she's really honest about the struggles, too. Getting stuck mid-conversation, not knowing the right questions to ask, or not understanding all the jargon, the terminology, sometimes needing people to really break things down. She says sometimes she still didn't get the head or tail of it, right? And this is the key takeaway for her. Even then, I walk away having learned a lot from that one day.
Yeah, and if we connect that to the bigger picture, The value of those informal learning spaces is just huge for actual real-world professional growth. They offer this spectrum of insights, connections, things you just don't get from traditional education alone. It's about being proactive.
So beyond the meetups, the external actions, what about the internal shifts? What was going on inside Kayal that really cemented this change? Well, she talks about this really powerful realization. She used to complain, apparently, that people looked down on her. But then she had this thought. The way I saw myself years back was worse than how anyone else ever did. That's quite a moment of self-awareness, isn't it? And it led to this commitment she made to herself. Basically, if I ever feel the urge to blame or hate someone for holding me back, I should start with myself. And I won't do that to myself, so I won't do it to anyone else either. She mentions her mind used to be very conservative. This sounds like a massive opening up.
Absolutely. That level of self-reflection is profound, taking responsibility for your own perception.
And there's another layer to her core motivation. Turns out her school fees were partly sponsored by a relative. College was fully covered by scholarship. So very early on, she set this goal for herself. By the time I finish my typical years of education, I must be in a position to give back. And she proudly says, today I am. That purpose, that drive to give back, she says it helped her face every hurdle, drove her to fight for learning chances.
That's incredibly powerful, having that clear why behind the effort.
Yeah, and it wasn't all serious struggle either. She adds this little note, which I loved, that the journey wasn't cold or dry. She mentions having this many varieties of ice cream with a little emoji in my life as I did in 2025, apparently thanks to some alumni in Chennai. And she gives shout-outs too, thanking specific people, Jeremy, Bhupati, Sandia, for their support in Bangalore, like food and a place to stay, little human touches.
That's lovely. It grounds the whole thing. But what really stands out is how that internal clarity, that sense of purpose, it just acts as this incredibly strong engine, doesn't it? For pushing through self-doubt, pushing through external barriers. It really underscores why understanding your own motivations is so critical for growth. So how did this inner strength play out when she faced actual external pushback?
Perfect question. Because she definitely faced it. She didn't just change internally. She actively pushed against restrictions, both external and, interestingly, some self-imposed ones too. She gives some really concrete examples, like at 16, got selected for this 5-day residential research camp 80 kilometers away. She writes, tried convincing my family, failed, packed my bag, waved goodbye, came back fine. Just like that, matter of fact. Then at 19, she's attending these Gen AI sessions with Bhargava and VC, often at odd hours. Family asks, who are these people? Her reply, my alums. I'm learning. And importantly, she used her scholarship money to pay for her own internet data packs to do it, taking ownership.
Wow, real determination there.
Totally. And she mentions people asking her, why are you staring at Excel sheets like you're mad? And she just smiles wryly, because VC had actually predicted that exact reaction. Then at 20, during an internship, people told her, this is making you so tired. Why not quit? Try something easier. Her response, she just listened patiently. Again, you sense the quiet resolve, and go back to work. And she adds a clarification. She never actually said it was tiring.
So she wasn't just pushing back, she was holding her ground based on her own experience, not others' perception.
Exactly. And maybe the most vivid example is the Bangalore meetup trip. She wanted to go, was told flat out, you're not allowed. Her response was pretty firm. Tell me what I should do to be allowed, or I'll book the tickets and leave. So they reached a compromise. Your mom will accompany you. Her reaction, deal. She went, mom tagged along. And then she cheekily adds that she showed them all the bills afterwards and nobody cared to tag along next time. A little emoji there.
That's a great story, proving her capability.
Right. She also briefly mentions having her own self-imposed restrictions until her 3rd year of college. Things she felt helped her focus then, but wouldn't necessarily recommend to others now. And she draws on her childhood. Apparently, she learned to be alone quite young, from age 7. Her advice from that is interesting. Learn to stay with people, and also without them. Because, as she puts it, sometimes you have to chisel a unique path, and you might have to walk it alone for a while.
That's very insightful, the balance between connection and independence.
And then she lands on this really nuanced, important ending. She says, the same people who once told me to stop were also the ones who stood by me when I broke down, fell sick, or celebrated small victories like they were grand wins. They stayed with me through every act of disobedience, knowing I might still continue. Again, a little playful emoji hint there. And her final thought, this is not a story of fighting anyone. This is a story of working on myself.
That's such a crucial distinction. If we step back and look at the bigger picture. Her journey really shows that growth isn't always about rebellion, is it? It's often about navigating these complex relationships, these expectations. Real strength seems to come from that internal conviction. It lets you follow your path, pursue your goals, while still acknowledging the support around you, even if it's sometimes, well, imperfect or maybe even resistant at first. It's about inner resolve guiding outer actions.
So wrapping this up, what's the big takeaway here? Kayal's journey from that silent girl on the bus to this confident connector. It's really fueled by that deep desire to give back.
Yeah.
Right? And this relentless commitment to working on herself. It's just such a powerful example of what can happen when you take initiative, when you're willing to be uncomfortable, and when you just keep learning by doing. We've seen how one direct, maybe even difficult conversation can light a fire.
Yeah.
How showing up and crucially engaging with strangers is a skill you build over time through practice. And how pushing past those external barriers, and maybe even more importantly, the internal ones, is just vital to unlocking potential.
And this deep dive into her experience, it really drives home that idea. Just going through the motions, college, work, it probably won't be enough to help you figure out what you really want. Her story is such a strong illustration of the impact of deliberate self-discovery, and actively building your network, your community. It's that intentionality that seems to make all the difference.
So here's a thought to leave you with, thinking about Kayal's journey. What's one small step, maybe something that feels a little uncomfortable that you could take this week? Could you initiate a conversation you might normally avoid? Attend an event that feels unfamiliar? Or maybe challenge one of those quiet, self-imposed limits that might be holding you back? Holding you back from finding out what you really want or what you need to learn next. Remember how Kayal started with just one word, Madurai, on that bus? And look where she ended up. What could your one-word moment be? What might it spark for your own growth journey?